Hi everyone, welcome to today's BIMco Bites on Revit 2026 features. Today we'll be going through an overview of BIMco's top picks for the new features within Revit 2026. We've sort of clustered them into 4 or 5 main categories there. Walls, Toposolids, sheets, views, and links. All right, let's have a look at walls first off. Okay, so I've just opened up a plan here. Now, a nice new feature of the wall tool is the ability to now draw walls or place walls by room or by segment of a room. So I've got here a tiled wall selected, and I'm going to select place by segment, and you'll see here in the 3D preview that we're able to place it along the edge of a room. Okay, so I'm just going to undo that. Now, if you do want to make that even faster, you can do place by room, where you hover over the room itself, click, and all of the walls within the room will have a wall added. So this is a tile finish. This is the way that BIMco does tiled finishes. So it's great to see that Revit's adopted that same approach and methodology. Now, you'll also notice that the door's automatically been cut there, and that's because we've got auto join turned on up here whilst we're placing those, so you can make that really fast process. Okay, other features within walls, if I click on, say, a wall here, let's actually close that off. Click on this wall skin here. Now, these finish type walls, oddly enough, well, have to have a core in the old versions of Revit. This core boundary always used to have something within the core boundary, but you can see now we're actually able to create a wall without having any layer within the core boundary. So that will make more sense when you're creating these walls that actually don't have a core to them. Whilst we're in here, well, we'll head over to another wall. There's a couple of changes in terms of the ways that walls intersect. You can see that plasterboard's running through the stud section here and dividing the wall. We go into the edit type of this particular wall and we go back into structure. You can see that we have a new field here called priority, and you can actually change that now independent of the function. These used to be bound together as the one parameter, but now these can be independent, which is quite handy because the priority sometimes doesn't always match up with the function. And when you can change that, you can resolve issues like that in a different way. Okay, heading outside now, we're going to go into 3D. I'm going to have a look at Toposolids. Okay, so one of the handy features of Toposolids is now the ability to create a subdivision that has a negative offset, which is fantastic for creating things like footpaths and roads. So you can see over here on the right, when I select this Toposolid subdivision, you can actually drop that down. Now, that was a major flaw in earlier versions of Revit. When Toposolids were introduced, they were all additive on top of the surface. Now they can actually be hosted at 0, chop out of the host, or at a negative even in that matter. Okay, we're going to go ahead and sketch a Toposolid here. Subdivision. So I'm going to select the existing Toposolid. We're going to select subdivide, and I've got some lines here. See if I can select those. And we're going to make a footpath up to our residence here. Let's hit select there. And you can see, how handy that is, and that actually goes down into the surface, which is fantastic. Very difficult to do on earlier versions of Revit, this type of thing, but that'll make landscaping much, much easier. Okay, another thing to note with these is these are now their own types. You can see you can switch between them. They can have compound layers as well. So you can have a build-up on them. So grass, sand, earth, for instance. And because of that, you can easily swap them out between different types. So if that's wood planks, you can swap it out to wood planks, etc., or back to concrete footpath. These are also now done as a subcategory. So if I go into visibility graphics, go down to Toposolids, you can see subdivisions is a subcategory here, and we can turn those off, and you're left with the void form of those shapes. Okay, another small change to these is you can copy the points and lines of these surfaces. So if we click on our Toposolid and we modify these sub-elements, we have a few points over here. Previously, these were not able to be copied, but now we can actually use copy, Control-C and Control-V, and you can paste points around, manipulating these or copying points between surfaces much easier. And finally, on Toposolids, because these are subcategories within the Toposolid, they can be scheduled as well. So I'll just have a look in here. We have a subdivision schedule, which means we can schedule the subdivision, its area, say, and its volume, alongside all of the other usual parameters. But that may come in handy for landscapers who would like to know quantities of things for their landscaping. All right, moving over to sheets. I'll go into a sheet here. Now, previously, when you wanted to align your viewports on sheets, you might set up something like a guide grid, and you'd snap that to a reference plane or a grid. Now you can actually save the position and apply that to other views on other sheets. So I'll select this here. We've got these save position tools at the top here, and we'll call these plans. Okay, once that's done, it's locked in, can't be moved. And you can go into other views or other sheets, select a different view, and select the saved position, and that will now be in the same location. That can be done en masse as well. If you want to go through, you can select many of these in the project browser, and you can then assign them all to a position using saved position here. Now you'll notice as well, if I return this back to none, we have additional parameters here that we can utilize. View to sheet positioning, where you can have an anchor, and based on that anchor, you can have an X and Y coordinate. So that is in the view origin at this point here, and these are the values for that. As you shift that around, you can see what they are. That might be quite useful for running automations and understanding where things sit relative to the view anchor. Now, there are different view anchors you can pick: origin, center, top left, top right. View origin seems to be the most robust one of those. Okay. All right. Now we are able to as well schedule additional parameters, which is nice to hear. If I go into a drawing list or a sheet list, you can see here we are now able to schedule the scale, the sheet width, sheet height, and sheet collection as well. These are all now available parameters for putting into your sheet schedules. You'll also notice that we have a different override here on our scale. Now, if you think back to previous versions of Revit, it usually says as indicated. Now, if I go into elevations sheet 1, here we have a legend on the sheet that has a different scale to the actual viewports. That usually triggers the as indicated, but with the new parameter, which is located in the edit type of the sheet, you can actually type in whatever else you want. Now, that will not take, say, a value like this, 1 to 100, because it won't take special characters. So just be wary that this still has to be a text-based override. So rather than as indicated, we've just written in refer to view titles there. Okay, onto views. So if I go into 3D here, there's a new feature that you'll notice as soon as you open up Revit. there's this accelerated graphics button that sort of floats here. You can turn that off in the options dialog under the graphics tab, which it mentions there, to stop it showing. But if you'd like it there, it's on, and you can turn it on using this little toggle. So I'm going to select that little toggle, and it's basically going to say that's going to turn it on just for this view. It pretty much means that you can operate in Revit a little bit faster. So if you're having issues with performance, you'll turn it on. It's not something that's meant to for printing or anything like that. It pretty much simplifies your view down and removes a whole bunch of extra information. So I'll click OK there, and you'll see that, okay, we've lost the line scales. So all the lines look the same thickness now. We've lost a hatch on our surfaces here. I don't think it does render-based materials. It pretty much turns off a whole bunch of things, apparently. And by doing so, I think it leverages the graphics card, the GPU, but it also means it runs fast because it's not processing as much. Now it's tech preview, so it's under development, under beta still. Something to be noted. Let's head now into a section here. Now, previously when we've done callouts and it's been a similar detail, we'll do a call out here. View callout. We reference another view and we might pick something like so. And when we go around it, it'll say sim. You can see sim there. Okay, let's just make that nice and thick. That's been baked into the family usually. However, we now have the ability to change that. We can go into edit type. We can change it here as we had before. So similar, sim, SIM, however you'd like to display it. So that's the default value, right? But then there's also this one here. Now, you notice I've changed it, but it's kept the original. So you can now change that to whatever you like. So handrail type 1, for instance. And now that will give you a little bit more information about that particular call out or detail. Also, with our view titles, viewports, view references, all these sorts of things, we can now add additional shared parameters. So these are our custom shared parameters. So if I select this view, we have a view group and a view subgroup here. View group, view subgroup. These are bimco parameters to help us sort and sort our views basically in our project browser. I've just turned them on in that family. So I've added them in just to demonstrate that you can now do custom parameters in things like this, in viewport titles, in call out heads and that type of thing. Okay, finally, let's have a look at links. Okay, so let's go into the insert tab. Now notice that the manage links button, which has been lost in the middle of this as of recent days, has now been shifted all the way to the beginning. I think that's a nice little touch. Mind you, you should always use shortcuts anyway. But now we also have the ability to view imports. So imports are limited to a few different types, not everything, but DWGs is one of them that can be shown up. And not to mention, it will show us the count. It will also show us the actual location. So if you're looking for this import, previously we'd have to go and use a third-party add-in. We can now go to it and we can click show, and it will then show us where that DWG is hiding there.